Okay, good morning, everyone. Karen and I here. Today we're going to be discussing question number two. So this question is based on a neurological patient. So Karen is actually going to be asking me the question. Just like before, we'll have the question below. I highly suggest pausing the video so you can read the question, go through the 4 answers, pick the correct one, and then resume the video so you can listen to Karen and I discuss what the correct answer is and why the other 3 are not correct. All right, sound good, Karen?
It's good. So you ready, Shanna?
Yeah, I'm ready. Go ahead.
Posing you a question.
Okay.
So we have a 70-year-old female who is alert and oriented ×3 on admission after a fall where she hit her head. Her vital signs are all within normal limits and she denies any pain. The lab results are a serum sodium level of 125, a serum osmo level of 270, a urine osmo of 940, and the patient weighs 70 kilos. The physician orders a 3% saline infusion at 50 mLs per hour with Q12-hour serum sodium level checks to be drawn. Are you concerned about the efficacy of this order? So you have your four potential answers at the bottom. So go ahead and review those and then come back to hear what we have to say.
Perfect. So after pausing, I think there's a lot in this question and I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by numbers. But the correct answer, we'll just go straight to that first, is C. So serum sodium levels, if you're going to run a 3% drip, need to be checked more frequently than every 12 hours. We don't want to correct hyponatremia too quickly. So the answer is C. We're going to want to check serum levels on our sodium more frequently than every 12 hours, specifically because we don't want to overcorrect the hyponatremia, because the patient can be at risk for central pontine myelonolysis, or CPM. And even though very few patients get it, I think for the exam it's still important to kind of know what that is. And running 3% at 50 cc's an hour is acceptable. So,
well, you know, Shanna, when I look at that question, I get a little bit overwhelmed with the lab values.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, so you have this neuro patient, she's had a head injury, and she's got a really low sodium and her serum os is low too. So, but how do you remember that and where do you start with this? And they also give us a urine osmo. Where do we go with all those? Tell me how you analyze it.
So I think this question is definitely tricky, and if you don't read what the question is first, what they're asking, it's easy to get overwhelmed. So I think for myself, after I've read the entire question, I go back to the scenario. Technically, I go to the question, and the question is asked: the MD orders a 3% saline infusion at 50 cc's an hour with Q12-hour sodium levels to be drawn. Am I concerned about this order? That kind of redirects my thought pattern. I'm like, what is it that I'm looking for? So here in the question, it's saying, is 50 cc's an hour of a 3% sodium drip, is that standard? Is that allowed? Is that ridiculous? And in my head, from running 3%, I'm like, no, that's something that is acceptable. But I also know that if you're ever running a 3% drip, that most facilities are asking for either Q4, maybe at the least Q6 sodium checks. So right there, I was already able to answer more than almost the entire question right there without even reading the top. So where I got confused with all those numbers. But what I would say is that if you didn't know these and you didn't know how quickly 3% could be ran, or you didn't know how quickly, the first things I would look at would be, okay, we know it's a trauma patient because she fell, but is her problem the fall, her hit, the traumatic brain injury, or is it potentially something else? They're telling us here that her vitals are normal, there's no pain. I'm assuming even though we got these lab values back, I would think that they're either pending a CT result just to make sure that that fall didn't cause any brain injury of some sort. But the first thing I look at is always the sodium level. I know that the sodium levels normal is like 135 to 145. And right there, it tells me that she's hyponatremic. So I think in all my patients where I'm automatically kind of flagged at, oh, that sodium level isn't normal, I start with that. Next, because, you know, we could have someone hypernatremic and we can be dealing with dehydration, or we can be dealing with hyponatremia and be dealing with something that has nothing to do with her head at all. It could be some sort of medication she's taking, maybe some sort of renal insufficiency or a problem in that sort. So if you read through this entire scenario, the patient, it's set up for you to notice that the patient is in SIADH. That will be a whole nother discussion for us. But I think my point is that it's easy to get overwhelmed about all these numbers and what's going on with the patient and sidetracked by that, because then we might pick the wrong answer because we're thinking more into it than what it needs to be. But on another discussion, maybe you and I can discuss DI versus SIADH. So for this question alone, I think that that's a lot of stuff in there that can be confusing. But like I said, we'll discuss that on another time. I hope that helps a little bit just for test taking. But what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's good. Sometimes there's a lot of information. You have 3 lab values there.
Yeah.
Most of us don't know a normal urine osmol. And to answer this question, we don't really need it. The sodium being low is kind of the key component of this, and then also the serum osmol being low. So one of the things those are like, I can remember sodium levels, but serum osmol levels I may forget.
Yes.
So one of the things you can do when you go in to take the test is they're going to give you a piece of paper and a pencil. And I like to do what we call a brain dump, where you just write down like lab values that you think are going to fly out of your head.
Yes, yeah.
Write them down right there. Then they're going to be there for you if you come across a question like this.
Yeah.
Just those ones that you kind of forget.
Yeah, and I think that's excellent, because sometimes you just go blank anyways. One thing that helps you remember about serum osmo is that just like our serum sodium levels, it's 135 to 145, so it's a tight range. Your serum osmo is technically the same. So your serum osmo normal level is 285 to 295. So I try to remember, like, okay, that's right. There's a 10-point difference between in a normal sodium level is the same. That's the same for like the serum osmo, and that kind of helps me think like, okay, I remember that they both have real tight parameters. So, but writing it down would completely help, because when you get a bunch of stuff like this, it starts to get really confusing.
Right, that's great. So it's interesting how you have more data than you probably need. So you really could answer that question with just understanding your fluid and electrolytes with just sodium, probably. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much. Yes, thanks, Karen, for going over that with us. We will definitely talk more about hyponatremia, because I think that that's not just about neuro patients, but it's a renal problem. I mean, there's so much that goes into that. And I know, like, in your classes, in the renal portion, we talk about hyponatremia too, and how it affects. So that'll definitely be another topic that we can go into next time. So.
Yes, it even affects the heart failure patients. So it's a fluid and electrolyte imbalance that's pretty common in hospitalized patients. So.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, thanks so much, guys, for listening. Thanks, Karen, for asking me the question. Please remember to subscribe and look for our next video. All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.